All right, what's going on, everybody? So this weekend we got Silva versus Diego Lopes for UFC Noche, which is honestly a great main event for a fight night card. So I'm going to be giving key to victories for both fighters, what I think they'll do well in the fight, whatever weaknesses I think they have, and ultimately how I think the fight's going to end up going. But real quick, before I get into the video, 95% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if like UFC, holy shit, Misfits boxing or pro boxing content, I post 3 to 4 times a week on the channel at least, so make sure you guys subscribe. I appreciate you. All right, so first let's talk about the tail of the tape. Diego Lopes is 5'11" with a 72-inch reach, and Silva is 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Now, I'm very excited about this fight because this isn't going to be a stall fest. We aren't going to see hugging the entire time. We're going to see two guys absolutely scrap it out to see who's better and see who the bigger man is, because sometimes we don't see that in UFC anymore, which is kind of tragic. But this is not talking about that this video. Let's move on real quick before I get the Kamzat and former Merab fans, because Merab has converted. Like, I like Merab now. But yeah, this is going to be absolute scrap. I feel like they both have a fairly good chance of winning this fight. I feel like Silva is the best fighting nerd. Yes, there has been kind of a hole poked in this whole fighting nerds persona, because there is something that I'm going to mention later in the video that seems consistent that the fighting nerds really seem to struggle with. All right, now let's do key to victory for both fighters, and then I'll give my ultimate how I think is going to go situation thingy, prediction thingy that I like to do on this YouTube channel. So first, to start with Silva. Now, Silva is a very special striker, and like I just said, I think he might be the best fighting nerd. People were saying roofie, but we just seen that his wrestling game isn't very polished. And to be fair, Charles Jourdain did grapple Silva in their fight. So, God, yes, the reflex is so annoying. So, that could be a factor in this fight too, but I really don't think Diego Lopes is going to do that. But, like I said, the fighting nerds, they just really like to work in space. Silva is probably the best at it. He's able to use his footwork to get out of range for strikes, and there were a couple times in the Volkanovski fight with Diego Lopes where he couldn't quite close the distance against Volk and all of that, but Volk is probably a better fighter than Silva. Let's be real, guys. I know there's a big hype behind him, but we're talking about Volkanovski here. And we got to be real. Silva's best test is Bryce Mitchell. So this is going to be his real test right here, especially on the feet. So his key to victories, for the most part, I could really see him trying to have Diego Lopes moving back, because Diego Lopes is a fairly patient striker, especially in the Volkanovski fight when somebody's so in and out, similar to Silva. So he's going to be technical against Silva. So Silva is probably going to be looking to use body kicks, push him back, and control the fight, because I feel like the fighting nerds really like to control the fight, which I'll get to. Maybe could be a flaw of his in a second, but I can see him really moving forward, really gliding in and out, and trying to close distance and try to catch Diego Lopes. But Diego Lopes has a very tight guard, so it won't be that easy. But I think that Silva is going to try to get him out of there, and we may see a little bit more patient of a Silva, but Diego Lopes is so high and tight, I think he's going to try to kick the body and wear him out, and then eventually go for the finish at some point in the fight. And I think he's going to be on some goofy timing. I just don't think it'll be the best idea for him, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying he's able to not fighting backwards, because he does have some good counter punching. He's probably the best out of all the fighting nerds, because we've seen that Rufy really is a step back right hand merchant, but Silva has a lot of different counter shots he can hit you with, and he has some real power in his hands. I think he's a better boxer than Rufy and Barajo. I think that he's very talented with his hands, and I feel like that's going to be his main factor besides the body kicks in this fight. And I just think he's going to try to go and hit him with what he can go with and then get out of range, because I think when they get into a telephone booth type fight, that's when things could change, which I'll get to in a second. But Silva has some real power in his hands, and I think that there is a real chance that he could hurt Diego Lopes, but I'll get to in a second. For Diego Lopes, now Diego Lopes is huge for the division. He's 5'11", and he has a long reach too. He needs to pose this in his fight. He cannot fight intimidated, because that's when the fighting nerds really get you, when you watch them do what they do and then you let them push them back. I was kind of saving this, but in the past couple fights, well, kind of in one night in the last event, we kind of seen the weakness of the fighting nerds. They love to be in control of the fight. They love to fight at distance. When the fight starts to get out of control for them and they're starting to get pushed back, or they're against the cage or whatever, they seem to struggle. They seem to really struggle with pressure and not being in control the entire time. That's what we've seen so far. Again, I think Gene Silva might do the best job out of all of them with his better counter shots. But I just feel like Diego Lopes is so high and tight. He's going to be walking him down. He needs to work that jab because he has a nice jab. He needs to kick the legs of Gene Silva because Gene Silva is going to be going all over the place, all some wacky stuff. So he's got to kick the legs, work his jab, and push Gene Silva back. And try to keep the fight close in range so he can't let Gene Silva work his kicks from distance and all that. He's got to close the range, and he's got to fight not intimidated Gene Silva. You got to put the pace of the fight. I feel like that's the key to beating the Fighting Nerds. I really think so. This will be the real fight to see. Whether Diego Lopes listens to royalty on YouTube, that's one thing, but I'm sure his team's saying something like that, especially working his jab. And overall, trying to get rid of his mobility so they could end up fighting toe-to-toe, because I feel like that's where Diego Lopes will strive. So my game plan for both is kind of simple, because it's going to be a striking matchup. I think Gene Silva is going to be all over the place, and I think Diego Lopes is going to be trying to slow him down with those leg kicks. Slow him down with those leg kicks. Work that jab, push him back, and then finish with that straight right hand, that drop Volk. I can see that hurting Gene Silva at one point in the fight. If he gets into a point in a clinch situation with Diego Lopes, he's a threat of that uppercut. Diego Lopes has a very nasty uppercut and left hook behind it. I will say offensively, there's some similarities between Volk and Gene Silva, and at least to the point where it's comparable to the other Diego Lopes opponents. And Volk was able to catch Diego Lopes pretty good in their fight a couple times, and I gotta say, it would be a little bit different as Gene Silva. Even though I think Volk is a way better fighter than Gene Silva overall, power is a different story, and I don't think Diego Lopes should be taking shots like that, but I think he might be a little bit more cautious because he has to be aware of it, you know what I mean? Don't be scared of it now. Be aware of it. Now for how I think the fight's going to actually play out now. I guess you could kind of put the pieces together for the key to victories, in my opinion. I kind of mirrored their weaknesses too, but I really feel like at range in like round 1, 2, I feel like that Gene Silva is going to be doing very good. I think he might land some things. He be elusive, and it seems like, oh man, he's going to fuck up Diego Lopes, but I think as time goes on, Diego Lopes is going to be working that jab, pushing him back, kick the leg, kick the body, and just push Gene Silva back. As Gene Silva seems to wear down a little bit, he starts to put on the pressure. And again, if he kicks, I hope he does this at least, because I feel like the leg kicks are very important in this fight. He has the leg beaten up, so Gene Silva just a little bit more stationary. They go toe-to-toe. And I really see an uppercut catching Gene Silva. I really do, because they both have powerful uppercuts, but Diego Lopes is a lot better close range, in my opinion. Like in a telephone booth boxing, I pick Diego Lopes, but at range, I pick Gene Silva. You know what I mean? So, there could be clinch work. It could be a clinch uppercut finish, but I think that ultimately that could be something too. Diego Lopes could work in the clinch, but ultimately I think that Gene Silva is going to start off good, and then as the fight slowly goes on, he wears down Silva over and over, and I think he catches him with an uppercut in the telephone booth in like round 4 or 5. I'll say round 4. I feel like I say that all the time, but I don't really see it happening early because how elusive Gene Silva is at first. But I think as the fight goes on, I think that Diego Lopes would be able to wear him out completely and then finish him as the fight goes on. It could be a decision win where Gene Silva starts off early, but Diego Lopes pulls away, but I don't know, man. Gene Silva's best test is Bryce Mitchell, and I just don't know. Diego Lopes is way more battle-tested, and I think he's better boxing up close. So if it gets to that point, I got Diego Lopes, but if Diego Lopes goes out there not fighting smart, not kicking the legs, not trying to push him back, he might lose. Gosh. So yeah, guys, I got Diego Lopes by TKO. Let me know if you guys disagree or agree in the comments down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that if you want to see more of me. I don't got a lot of subs, so you really should turn on that bell if you want to see me. The algorithm isn't liking me right now, you know what I mean? I got to work at that. So, yeah, man. Let me know what you think about the rest of the card. I'm going to be making an instant reaction Saturday, so I'll be talking about the whole card, but I just wanted to predict the main event because, again, I don't talk about fights that I'm not completely sure about. I don't want to talk out of my ass on this channel, so thank you guys for listening to me yap like usual. God bless every single one of you, and peace out.